Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are tonight's entertainment.
Sound good?
Yes, sir! I know who I am!
Did IQs just drop shot?
That could have been.
I have a plan.
I like this shit.
You know, it's exciting.
Dance off, bro.
It is your
Me and you.
destiny.
Welcome to the Atlantic Screen Connection Podcast.
Let the games begin.
Hello and welcome to AtlanticSC Next with Jason and Lee. I'm Jason.
I'm Lee.
And for those of you just joining the Atlantic Screen Connection podcast, AtlanticSC Next is dedicated to discussing what we watch during the weeks off our main show and bring on a guest to join the fun. This week, we are proud to welcome the subjectively objective, always dramatically urgent, and thematically relevant JD Duran from the InSession Film Podcast. Welcome,
that was very
sir.
good, Jason. My wife would be so proud of you. That was fantastic. Well, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I know that I sort of had to beg my way on, but I love your guys' show so much. So I did everything I could. I clawed and scratched my way here because this is awesome, man. I love you guys, and I'm so excited for this.
Thank God it worked out in some shape or form at long last. I was just listening back to our Inherent Vice episode, and there was your voice in it. I was like, oh, our viewers will already have heard you.
Yeah,
but it's good. We finally, some shape or form, we've.
I know. I like I said, I'm glad that I'm here. I'm very disappointed in myself that I wasn't able to make that Inherent Vice episode, but thus being a father and family life sometimes gets in the way. But I love that film way more than I probably should. But I was glad to hear you guys talk about it. But I was so ready to talk about that movie too. But I'm at least glad you guys covered it.
Oh, that's great. But we're going to bring you on for a bigger review at one point. This is kind of just come on, man. We've been trying to do this for almost 5 months now.
We can't keep showing up on InSession without ever giving back.
oh yeah.
Yeah, I've had you guys on a couple times, and
that's one of the things we have to do. JD, how about you tell us a little bit about InSession Film, what you do for there, and tell them about your best shows, namely the one with Kong Skull Island and the Rogue One episode.
Yeah, exactly. Those are definitely two of our best episodes for sure, featuring Jason and Lee respectively. So, the InSession Film Podcast is something we do weekly, actually twice a week, I guess. We have a main show that comes out on Mondays, which is normally dedicated to some of the bigger releases that come out each week. We have top 3 lists that we cover, as well as other film discussion. And it's a lot of fun. And then on Fridays, we have a segment we call Extra Film, which is dedicated to indie films or the smaller releases out there that a lot of people may not have heard of, or foreign language films or classics that we just normally don't cover on our main show. Which has been a lot of fun. It's been really interesting to see how Extra Film has organically evolved into its own thing, and in a lot of ways it has its own audience. I know that we have some listeners that tune in just for Extra Film. They don't even listen to the main show. So
I find myself gravitate more often to Extra just because of the shorter format. Yeah. Not any specific preference, but it's just I've got an R here. I don't have 2 R's. Extra, bam, the 2 films and an R, awesome. I'm more clued in. I'm never going to see these fucking things.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we're working on as well. We know that our main show is a little long, but
you cover great ground, and that's what's great about it. Especially, you've recently been doing more essay form stuff as well, kind of looking into happenings in the film culture. And I find that super interesting. You guys are a good authority as opinions on that. So I enjoy that segment now that's kind of working its way in.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see how the show is evolved over the course of the last 5 or 6 months. Things have kind of changed up here and there, but Brendan and I, we try to. We're not quite as academic as you guys can be on your main show, and I mean that in all of the best ways. You guys are phenomenal. That Under the Skin episode is just remarkable. Some of the best stuff I've ever heard.
Awesome.
Thank you.
But
so nice.
Yeah, it's very, very, very good. But we do try to, obviously we review the film for what it is, but we dissect it and certainly try to divulge more than, what you see there on the surface. So, and that's been a lot of fun, especially since Brennan has come on the show. It's really taken on a life of its own and been a lot of fun. It's been really cool. My wife, I'm sure, would love for me to only be on these for 30 minutes at a time, 20 minutes at a time, but bless her heart, she supports me and supports the show, and yeah, she's what makes this happen, really. But
I've seen a couple of things that Brandy's shared on Facebook, and it's always super fun to see that you guys can take jabs at each other about what you guys are talking about.
Oh, she makes fun of us all the time. Yeah.
Awesome, cool. What about you, Lee?
What about me?
How you doing? Anything new and exciting to report? How's the wedding plans coming along?
Yeah. The wedding's coming along great. It's just at the end of this month, which by the time this episode comes out, we've been fucking ready for the wedding for months, man. It was just a matter of paying it off at this point. It's just a matter of now showing up. I'm really excited because the wedding's, it's fine, it's good, but the honeymoon is to America, and I have never been there.
Yeah, you can come visit me.
I can't because you're on the other side of where I'm going.
Oh, man.
You can come visit me.
Well, where are you going?
I'm going to California / Las Vegas / San Francisco.
Okay.
Very cool.
Yeah,
that is very far from me.
Yeah, it's pretty much as far as America goes, at least laterally.
Yeah, because then you got Alaska, which is a place no one visits.
Yeah, the 3 people that live there, yeah.
Sarah Palin and her neighbors.
Jason, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. I'm getting geared up for Alien Covenant, and I can't wait. This is going to be cool.
Really?
I am eager to see the film because I'm going with Carrie, because Carrie's going to be on the show again, the same woman I was on for Under the Skin.
Looking forward to talking about it. I don't know if I'm looking forward to the film, but I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah.
Listen, man, I'm going to always be a Prometheus. I'm not even going to say apologist. I like the film. I understand the running in straight lines is stupid, but the rest of the movie was fine. I loved it. I understand that Ridley Scott was playing with people and, just saying like, call it the prequel, motherfucker. It's like, but I understand the negative connotation that there is to prequel based on what happened to the Star Wars movies. So Ridley Scott kind of going away from that made sense. Now, with this new Alien thing, I've decided to not watch anything. I saw the first teaser trailer, and then I zoned out.
I didn't even watch that. There was a buzz about it, and I went, I'm gonna watch it anyway. There's no fucking way I need to see Alien look like Alien. So maybe that's coloring my expectation to an absolute flat gray 0, but at the same time, I would prefer to be that way even if I had seen it. So yeah.
I know Brendan is he's anticipating something terrible.
Yeah, he's expecting the worst.
Yeah. I understand. I think that there is a romantic quality that comes to the 1979 film because it was made on a shoestring budget, and it's beautiful. It's very practical. Everything is there. It's a closed set. And sometimes you feel like when they revisit things like this, it's going to do everything in an overblown way where you're like, dudes, you just missed the point of the original and why people liked it. And so I'm hoping that they don't go that far and that they do kind of go a little bit more Hitchcock on it the way that the original was. But based on what I've heard from what people are saying from the trailers, it's a little bit intense.
It doesn't even feel like Alien to me in some regards. Like it's what I love about Alien and Aliens, even though Aliens has more action, it's still overall a pretty restrained film, and it's more intimate in its execution. And there's nothing about that, at least in terms of the marketing for this film. And marketing is just marketing, and they're trying to appeal to a certain fan base for sure. So I understand why they're marketing the film the way they do, but it just looks like it's everything that I don't want the film to be.
Sure.
In that regard, which is why I'm more toward Lee, but I'm hoping for the best. And the other thing about this movie too is that Ridley Scott, outside of The Martian, has been, to say that he's been hit or miss is putting it gently, but I guess I'll be nice. But he's had some big misses over the last 7 to 8 years. And that's also a big concern for me going into Alien Covenant. Cause outside of The Martian, I just haven't really enjoyed anything he's done lately.
Sure. Huh. I will see. I liked Prometheus. I'm not one of the people that hates on it for no fucking reason. It did its job. When I watched it the first time, I was gripped.
It's fine.
When I watched it the second time, I was more removed from a film than I had been previously in my life. I had never seen through it so easily than the second time I watched Prometheus, and that was a real shock to me. But at the same time, the fact he could win me over once is enough, and I can give credit to that. When it comes to Alien, I don't want to see Alien again, and I don't want to see Aliens again, and I don't want to see Prometheus again. I want to just see something. I don't expect to see another Alien ever. I don't think I'd want to see somebody just try to be Alien again. I'd be happy for a film just to have an alien and do something fucking weird with it.
Oh, yeah.
Fair enough. There you go.
I'm having fun. I don't know. I mean, I'm one of the few people that liked A Good Year. I liked Body of Lies, although the end I could have done without, but I don't know. I guess I'm actually one of the people that didn't like The Martian. I was bored, fucking shitless watching that movie.
Wow. Okay. Fair enough.
It was well made. I appreciate The Martian for it being well made, but other than that, I didn't enjoy it.
No.
But anyway, should we move on to film quotes read by Tweens?
Absolutely.
So we'll be back after this.
Look on my works, ye mighty and despair.
Hi everyone, this is Tim Costa.
I'm Hermano da Silva.
And this is Walter Vinci.
And together we are the First Time Watchers Podcast.
Each week we choose a movie to review that none of us has seen.
Watch it together.
And then discuss.
These movies could be new.
Or old.
Or on our list of shame.
You can find us on iTunes by searching for the First Time Watchers Podcast.
As well as on Stitcher.
And we love interacting with our listeners, so if you have any suggestions, send us a tweet.
An email.
Or post to our Facebook page.
We'd love to hear from you.
That's right. I mean, it's all about interaction.
And talk about what we love, movies.
And you don't have to worry about us going on and on about this and that and the other. And let's talk about this minutiae here.
Shut up.
And I wonder who the gap can
God damn it, shut up!
I think that's enough, Walter.
Oh my God.
Go by during the credits.
I'm Colin Llewellyn.
I'm Judson Grant.
And we're the hosts of Another Film Podcast.
Another Film Podcast?
That's right, Another Film Podcast.
On this show, every couple weeks, we analyze a classic and a contemporary film, analyze the cinematic DNA they share.
That's right. For example, we talked about 2001: A Space Odyssey, Interstellar, and Arrival.
And we also had an episode on Star Wars and the influence of Akira Kurosawa.
And if you're into more spooky things, we talked about The Shining and The Witch.
Oh, such a good episode.
We were like on point.
Check out that one, everyone. That's our best episode.
Yeah. Check us out. We are Another Film Podcast, found on social media under Another Film Pod and on SoundCloud and iTunes.
All right, welcome back to the portion called What Did You Watch This Week, where we simply discuss what we watched during the week. And to start that out, we're going to throw it over to our special guest, JD Duran, to let us know what he watched during the week. So, sir, take it away. What did you watch this week?
Well, man, where do I start? I guess I'll start with my most recent watch. Earlier today, in fact, I watched the new film with Anne Hathaway, Colossal, from director Nacho Vigalondo, I believe is how you say that. Maybe not. I could have butchered that, but this is a film that's been getting mixed reviews. I don't know what all you guys have heard about the film. I know Brendan and Vince were, yeah, probably. Vince and Brendan were not fans of the movie, as they discussed on our podcast, but I definitely enjoyed the film more than they did. And I think this film may go down as one of the more surprising films of the year for me. And not that I was expecting the film to be bad. I didn't really have a ton of expectations in terms of quality, but the film was actually quite different than what I had originally imagined, because going into it, I thought on the surface the film was going to be a metaphor about, the quote-unquote monster of addiction, based off of the little clips here and there and the little bit I knew about the film. But the movie really isn't about that at all. It's actually about power and how certain individuals get drunk off of the feeling of power and the control it gives them, and how that relates back to toxic masculinity in our culture. And I feel like the film does a really great job, especially in its back half, of emulating all of those ideas. And I think Anne Hathaway's performance captures all of that really, really wonderfully. The big problem I have with the movie, and I would agree with Vince and Brendan on this, as much as I enjoyed the film thematically and its, witty quirks and some of the drama you see throughout the film, it has this weird mix of tones and rhythms that is a bit just disjointed at times. It is jarring when you go from a scene that is comedically rooted to the next moment that is more dramatically rooted, and that transition doesn't always work throughout the film. But overall, I think the film does a pretty good job of emulating the notions it's going after. And like I said, it becomes very different than anything I expected. So, and I think on one corner, these dramatic nuances I'm talking about, but then you also have this Pacific Rim vibe throughout the film that I actually think works. It actually couples very well with that drama and its metaphors, even though it wears all of it on its sleeve. I think that's one of the things I appreciate about Colossal. So it's definitely one I can mildly recommend. Another film I got a chance to see, and this is something we discussed heavily on our main show this last week on 219, but I got to see James Ponsolt's The Circle.
Yeah.
Now, I had huge expectations for The Circle, not because of its premise or even its cast. For me, it comes down to that name, James Ponsolt. I love his work, at least of the work that I've seen so far.
Right.
The Spectacular Now, fantastic. End of the Tour, so good. So because of that, The Circle was in my top 10 most anticipated of the whole year.
Right.
Because both those films made my top 20 of their respective years. So a lot to look forward to in The Circle. And it's, I think the first thing I said in my review on the show is that there are bad films that are just pure dumpster fires, something like Independence Day Resurgence, for example.
Yep.
And then there are bad films that are still doing something interesting, but just really poorly executed. And that's where The Circle falls for me.
That's much worse.
Yeah. So
JD was commenting on the editing. Apparently the editing is Suicide Squad level crap.
Whoa.
Yeah, and to me that's the big problem.
That's a ballsy claim.
It is, but I think when you watch the film, you'll understand exactly where I'm coming from, because the film is it's very weird. It's very aware of what it is. It's a brazen satire on, Silicon Valley culture, millennial culture. It's obviously a cautionary tale in a lot of ways. And the film knows that. And when it embraces that and it in a lot of ways flips its middle fingers as it does throughout the film, it's actually doing some really fascinating and really funny stuff. The problem is the movie has no idea how to balance its satire with its characterization, its supporting characters, its subplots. Like it's all random in terms of the editing. It's so bizarre, and I really do think it's Suicide Squad level bad. And I feel like if the corporate overlords that were overlooking this film, if they would have stayed out of it, there's a chance that this film could have been something special. Yeah. But unfortunately, that's not. I don't think it's 18% on Rotten Tomatoes bad. A lot of podcasts and reviews are really bashing the shit out of this movie. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are really harping on it in some bad ways, and I don't think it's that bad.
There comes a period in every release schedule where people are looking for the next target, especially when it gets to blockbuster summer and the early window. There's a fall guy. When the season's bad and there's a one sliver of hope that the season might turn around or get onto a good foot, that's when they fall hardest, and that's where everybody looks for the biggest target and the easiest prey, and they just pick and pick and pick, and it just happens probably to be the circle this time. For all whatever it does, bad or good, it's probably not deserving of fucking under 20%. I mean, it's just hard to imagine.
I don't think that it deserves all of that, but I think part of it is not everyone, but a lot of people, I think, are taking the film more seriously than the film takes itself, because the movie doesn't take itself seriously at all. I mean, there are some scenes that are so brazen in its approach, and I mean, they may as well be flipping off millennial culture in this movie. They may as well have just done that on the screen and just said it out loud.
As well they should.
Oh no, my demographic.
The one thing that I picked up on, and the fact that you guys are comparing it to Suicide Squad in terms of level of editing and whatnot, I think that there's something even more important to pinpoint, and it's the idea that they're either mismarketing this or it's false advertising. Apparently, Hanks isn't particularly much in the film, and John Boyega's not there. The same way as when, like, the Joker for Suicide Squad, there were so many scenes that were cut out, and so maybe that backlash is something that's coming out as a result of them being promised something and not getting exactly that.
Well, fair enough.
No, I think that's exactly a very fair point, because John Boyega, I don't even know why he's in this film. He's not doing anything. He serves zero purpose to this film. And Tom Hanks, while he does have somewhat of a purpose, I would argue that in the end it's meaningless. Again, him and Patton Oswalt aren't doing anything. They have like 3 scenes in the entire film, and yet somehow become the antagonist by the end, but we don't get to know any of the supporting characters.
Right.
We hardly even get to know May. And a lot of that is because of the choppy editing of this film. It just makes zero sense. It doesn't even feel like a film. It's just a bunch of vignettes that are offering some fun satire in the middle of it. But see, that's a pretty big missed opportunity, that one. So
maybe
sounds
it's
good.
Edited,
looking forward to
maybe
it.
it's edited. Yeah, maybe it's edited for millennial culture. Everything is in snippets. Right?
Yeah, there you go.
For the attention span out there right now.
The last film I'll just mention here, in preparation for our Jonathan Demme discussion that we had on our latest main show, I did get a chance to rewatch the Silence of the Lambs, and
yes.
Oh, great.
God damn, is that film amazing. Oh my gosh, it's so good. I mean, everything about it holds up. The acting is impeccable. I love the direction. It's a tour de force in every way. So, I mean, there's nothing I can say about it that hasn't already been said, but I'm so glad I got a chance to see it.
Lee has seen bits and parts of the short film that I directed 12 years ago. And a lot of the shots in the film were taken from Demme pictures, because I loved the way he used the close-up shot to kind of impose a conversation onto people. He doesn't give them a choice to look these people in the eye. And it becomes very uncomfortable. And because, like any short film that you start when you're a kid, when you start making these things, it's always a murder story. And so I figured what I'm going to try to do is try to get people to feel a little bit more sympathetic towards this guy by making the close-up shots on the supposed murder that we find out at the end. But I'm going to have these very laid-back shots of the cop. So we have this detachment of the cop, and we're constantly close-up with the guy. So by the end of the film, when we have that switch around, we're no longer with close-up shots, we're actually pulling back, so it creates that jarring feeling for the audience. And so it was really fun to be able to use that. And so it was so sad to hear of his passing, and at the same time it reminded me, oh fuck, he actually had an impact on me as a guy who wants to make movies, because I used him in the first short film that I ever made. So it was
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
That is cool. Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah, I mean, Silence of the Lambs is just one of those everlasting perfections of just good crime thriller. Man. I think the best thing about it is just how fast it is. It does so much in such a little time.
It's a lost art now.
Yeah, exactly. The shorter film. I mean, it burns through some great set pieces, all very minimal, really. All mostly focused on the threat of the characters in them rather than actual, events happening or, real, genuine action. I think the most thrilling it gets is when there's an open cage You know, that's that's about the height of it. But it's just absolute masterful tension and suspense, and it really does make you come back for more just because you know it was just a damn good thrill ride.
Yeah, and I mean, it's so weird because we always talk about like Anthony Hopkins and we talk about Jodie Foster, but I mean Scott Glenn, man, he's fantastic in the film.
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw this really great comment on Letterboxd where someone said, "Are we sure Anthony Hopkins doesn't eat people in real life, because it felt so natural and real." Like it was such a great performance.
I actually use a sentence when I'm teaching English to my students. I'll use the sentence, I'm having an old friend for dinner, you know, and to explain, you know, just how important language is in terms of context. And so I'll put the quote on the board. And they say, "Oh, well, that means that you're inviting someone over." And I'm like, "Yeah, exactly." Yeah. And so then I'll put the name underneath, and then they go like, "Oh shit!" And it's always a fun reaction from the students when they're like, "Fuck, that's so weird." That's why context is important. You guys need to understand context to understand the whole meaning of a sentence. All right, and that's great. All right, Lee, what about you, man? What did you watch this week?
I've been totally fucking swamped. I only really have time in my life for Mad Men because I have to keep going. You know, the addiction is solidified now. It has to end. And the only logical end is back at the beginning. But I did get the chance to see Bennett Miller's Capote, and I wanted to quickly talk about it because I've never really read any criticism about it
until now.
But I'm going to give you my opinion hard and fast, and that's going to be that.
All right,
that's critical style for you. Ignore others, appraise yourself. So, I mean, the only other Bennett Miller film I've seen is Moneyball, which I fucking adored. I thought it was a great... I mean, I have no affiliation or attachment to baseball in the slightest, but that is a fantastic movie. And I think, he's only got the 3 movies, so I've only got Foxcatcher left to go.
There's I mean, there's a documentary that he put out in the early 90s, mid-90s actually, but you don't have to watch it if you don't want to.
Yeah, if you're not going to count PTA's Junin, then I'm not going to count whatever the fuck that is. So I've got in my head one great film, and in Capote, one very good film. Not a great film, but a really quite good one. Because it does its job pretty well. It's got a great story, with quiet, somber character piece that knows how to flip its character in so many directions to give us different lights, and we still never truly know him, even as we watch him blatantly suffer by the end. There's something fascinating about watching the journey of this man, and what kind of annoys me about it is that I felt it could have been done better. Because I think the core structure of watching Capote fall for this murderer and the sort of revelations that sort of take you down the path, and I'm just going to casually spoil the film, so if you don't want to hear that, listener, you can jump 5 minutes or so. What's great about Capote is I think it's like a lost David Fincher movie, in that structurally it follows very neatly a kind of layered character story around crime, which he's done before, and it flips itself on its head pretty neatly. But there's a thing with the twist in the narrative, and it's really more of a reveal. Basically, Capote, the guy he falls for, and the guy that he believes is innocent, and that's why he feels ashamed of the fact that he doesn't even reveal the title to him about his novel being called In Cold Blood.
Right.
Yeah.
And essentially exploiting this man is that deep down he doesn't just fall for him, but he genuinely believes his innocence. And knows that there's probably nothing he can do about it, but at least he'll benefit from getting as close to the story as humanly possible, because he's kind of a dick like that. But the reveal is that the guy that he falls for is not only genuinely involved, but solely involved. He is quite specifically a blatant murderer, and that foundation shakes him, and the film chooses to frame that as a twist rather than a reveal. And I felt that was really jarring against the overall tone of the film before that. It's a very slow film. It's very glacial. So we're really in a film where intimacy is treasured, and intimacy is between these two characters, the murderer and Capote, is fascinating and the center of the story. But everything moves so slowly and patiently. And when we get to the reveal, we go as close as humanly possible to this guy, and then we get cuts in the narrative where we flash to the horrific murders, and it's all done to provoke the audience. And what's weird is that it feels out of place on purpose, and that's why we call it a twist. You know, it's supposed to catch us. But it really just should have been a reveal. It really should have just been conversation. And the film should have played consistently there, because this is a story about what's going on internally, not externally. We see people, but we never really know who they are. We never see them in real comfort. And when we get to the twist, we break that for narrative shock value. And I think it's good. I mean, it's fine, but I think it would be better if this were a film that were a little punchier and a little jumpier and just more involved in a typical Fincher way, where we move more. There's more kinetic energy in the camera. We have scenes that pan more often, pull more often. We focus and we shift perspective as much as possible, instead of just, single camera stuff most of the time. Maybe a close up every now and then. It's all very restrained in Capote, and that was jarring to me only because I had felt the first third of the film was way too slow. And I appreciated that as the film was going on, because it remained slow. And that gave you time to delve into the characters, their underlying thought processes. And it felt the importance was on not jumping into quick narrative payoff. It was mostly a sort of cerebral experience that understood that this was biographical. These were real people. And what we were doing, what we're looking at here, is a lot of unraveling that you would genuinely see, but not understand. That distance was important. Breaking that for a twist, to me, undoes a lot of the goodwill the film has. And while the story isn't affected at all by it, I mean, it's still a great story. I feel that as a collective piece, this either needed to be about a third shorter, or a bit quicker, or a bit more involved in other places, to make this feel like it was more cohesive as a collective whole. It is brilliant that we see guilt done so well and in so many ways, and the unraveling is fantastic, but the whole of it doesn't tie for me.
I think that makes sense, because in a lot of ways that's how I feel about Foxcatcher,
right?
Which is a movie that narratively feels like it's heading in directions that are different than the performances for me, and as a result it's somewhat of this jarring experience. And I haven't seen the film in a little while, so I can't recall if I had that exact experience that you're describing there, but I do remember really liking the film, and in particular Philip Seymour Hoffman just absolutely deserved every,
he does a fantastic job.
Deserved every award that he got. He's so incredible. And hearing you talk about this film just makes my heart sink a little bit, just knowing that we don't have him around anymore to give these kinds of phenomenal performances, because I think if anything, he certainly got me through whatever happened there at the end. I don't know. Again, I don't know if I recall having that kind of a jarring experience with this film in particular, but I can certainly sympathize with that, though, because I do think Bennett Miller has been a culprit of that in the past. So I don't think it's as bad here as it was for Foxcatcher for me personally, but I mean, this is still a really good film. I think it would be one I would recommend anyway.
Cool. I think Lee and I should actually take these three films that he's made apart. Bennett Miller, to me, is slowly becoming a Stanley Kubrick type filmmaker in the way that he actually is able to take narratives that we've seen before, but then shape them in a way that are close to real life, because he is the true crime director, if you will. If you look at how he did Capote, even like when he did Moneyball, all these are all true stories, even in Foxcatcher. And to me, that's why when I was watching Capote, the jarring experience that you had at the end kind of reminded me of The Shining, where it's slow for the entire first part of the film, and then in the third act you hit like a ton of bricks where you're like, what the fuck is going on? You know? And I think that the three films that he has made that are like this are all films about the cancerous nature of obsession. And it's beautiful how even in the end, Capote, who's dealing with his emotional struggle to actually want to help these people but can't, and at the same time he might actually be wanting to set murderers free, but at the same time he feels for them. He feels like they were kind of pushed into doing this because of outside factors. And so he kind of sees the bigger picture. And I thought that Miller was able to capture that. I didn't see it as a twist, as more of like, we got to know these guys too, And was it really in cold blood? I thought that was the question that Miller was asking. By showing you the violence of that, you're like, yeah, but at the same time, you kind of get the impression it wasn't really their fault, which is weird because you're not supposed to feel that.
I agree, but that's what I mean. As he's describing it, the guy didn't know what he was doing. If we believe him with that, then maybe it's hard to tell when we're never really getting inside somebody's head until that moment, and even then it's contradictory. But at the same time, I feel that in this one particular case, it needed to justify how slow the beginning was.
Mm-hmm. I always thought that the way Miller started the film was because Capote was such an eccentric figure that if he just shoots you in the middle of a weird, you're not going to associate, you're not going to get to know him. I think it's a basic relationship where you're brought in and you're saying, just give him a minute, take your time, sit down, listen to him.
I agree.
And maybe his eccentricities are going to be something that you're going to find fun as opposed to just strange, because he was a weird guy. Have you ever seen him speak?
I know. I mean, he's
a very, very
fascinating
strange guy.
You're entirely right in that it was important for us to spend a little time with him. And the scenarios we get, there's enough of them as he follows this trail of trying to set up and get involved in the murder case, where we do get to see so many angles of him with his crowd, him with Harper Lee, him with his partner, him with the police chief and his family. There's so many sides. Each one's a different shade of Capote, which really just enlightens you that you don't know this guy and you never will.
Exactly. So cool.
Which fascinating, but it's so glacial and it's so quiet.
Oh yeah, the color palette's not cheery, man.
No, exactly. But that's the thing. Like I was interested for the character, but I felt that could have all been, if we're going to jump to twist somewhere, then there were parts there that could have just kept me more invested than just generally being interested in this bizarre guy, I feel like the film could have complemented the great story and intentions just a little more thoroughly.
Well, I think once you catch up with Foxcatcher, you'll come back to this film and go, actually, everything I said about this film, never mind. In comparison, never mind.
Not if Jason has his say.
Well,
Foxcatcher to me is an American masterpiece, but that's just that's because I have a take on it where I want to bring it in, and I'm not going to talk about it now because no one's talked about my theory, and I want to keep it that way for now because I'm still working on it, and it's going to be fun.
Cool.
All right, Lee, got anything else?
That's me. If you would like to take the reins for a bit.
Cool. I'm going to keep this short because I don't want Brandy to get pissed off at me now that I've made her a friend with the beginning of the show. So, I rewatched. These are mostly rewatches, and the new one that I did watch, I'll get to after. I wanted to briefly mention that I rewatched Ava DuVernay's 13th. I think it's still, God damn it. I was trying to, I'll give you the context. This week, I was showing it in class to my students. And because they had an exam where they had to kind of just, it's a listening or watching exam where I put on something. And it's a comprehension test. I mentioned this on the previous episode, but I didn't mention what happened after. I told them we were going to be watching one of the most important and influential films in recent history. And it's an important documentary for them. It's going to be knowledge that they need to have. And I gave them the exam, and this was a test. I should have kept the exam for last. Put them through the experience of the film and then give them the exam because we were watching something totally different. But what I did is I wanted to see just how kids that are around 17 or 18 years old from where I live here in the province of Quebec, I wanted to see how they would react to a film like this if they would actually show up for the movie. Now, this was a sad thing for me because the first time I showed it, out of a class of 33 students, 5 stayed and 2 left during the screening. And I couldn't believe how sad it made me feel because I was like, they don't care. And this is a sad thing. It's a sad state of affairs, and it speaks volumes for the times what we're living in right now. And it was a very, very disappointing experience for me as a guy who teaches for a living, where I'm like, what's the point if no one really wants to talk about these things? To them it's fiction. That this is all fiction. This is a movie. It's not happening. And you're like, this is necessary information that you're going to need this later in life to understand where the fuck you come from. Not just us here in Canada. This affects us too. You know what I mean? And so the worst part was when I actually showed it on my next class and no one stayed. I told them the exact same thing and everyone left. I ended up putting it on anyway because I figured, if ever the dean of the college showed up and he was like, why the fuck are you here alone? I was like, I was showing a movie and the students left. At least there was something playing, so I was correcting exams at the same time, but I found myself being unable to really continue grading papers because I was invested in the film and I had to turn it off myself because, twice in 1 week was a little intense. So I just encourage everyone, again, please go watch the movie 13.
So good.
It's available on Netflix. If not, I'm encouraging you hardcore to download a copy. Get your hands on this fucking material. You need it. It's important.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a disappointing experience for me. Not the film, but the people. Then I plugged in the Social Network. I was listening to original remake. They were talking, Mike Deniston and Pete from Pudstalgic. They were talking about The Founder and The Social Network, and I had just watched The Founder, and I was thinking it was really fun for them to actually be comparing it to The Social Network because that's what it is. Basically a remake of what's going on. But the seed had been planted. I wanted to revisit David Fincher's The Social Network, and god damn, that movie's awesome.
It's
so good, man.
It's so great.
I was trying to watch it. I own the Blu-ray, and my girlfriend caught me buying the digital copy off iTunes for $10, just so that I didn't have to download the fucking thing, because I could watch it on my iPad in bed while she was sleeping on the side. And so I started watching it the other day. The fucking color scheme is so low that I had to boost up the light so that I could actually see the people on screen. It was so cool. Anyway, I'm halfway through it right now, and I'm enjoying every single minute of it. And I want to pick this movie apart, but I'm just enjoying it as a viewer. I've turned my brain off as a critic, and I'm just sitting there going,
I know we have to do it at some point later in the year, and I have no idea what the fuck I can't detach myself from just a giddy and popcorn-loving viewer about it, that I have to actually sit down and try to pick it apart. It seems daunting and horrifying, and almost something that Fincher probably doesn't want us to do, which is even worse.
Oh, yeah, man. But I mean, I can't... If you guys haven't seen The Social Network, I love the marketing campaign for this fucking movie. How did they make a movie about Facebook? And you're like, that's right. How did they make a movie about
crazy.
Facebook?
It's crazy. And it's one of the best films of this decade so far.
Exactly. And Sorkin soars with his writing. He's so fucking good. Anyway, that was great. I'm still watching it. I'm looking forward to finishing the show so I can go and plug it in again. And I decided to put myself through one last thing. I rewatched the Ninja Turtles from 1990.
That feels so random.
Yeah, it is. I was coming home from teaching, and last Wednesday I got home, and my girlfriend only gets home 2 hours after I do. So sometimes when I just want to take a break, I'll find something random to put on, which is exactly what you said. And for some reason, I was like, this is why he fucking inceptioned me. The guy at the comic book store, I went to pick up my Star Wars comics the other day, and he was showing me, because he knows I'm a fan of the Ninja Turtles, and they put out these I think it's 12 or 13-inch replicas of the costumes that they wore in the 1990s.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And so it's stuck with me in my head, and he says...
So it's not random anymore.
No, motherfucker, though. He knows me too well. He was like,
I mean, it was random for him to do that.
I guess
he knows
it's 2017. Turtles have lived and died a number of times.
That's it. So he inceptioned me, and I ended up watching the Ninja Turtles, and I have nothing to say about that. It's still perfect.
Yeah, I love it.
To be fair, I watched, I think it was, I don't know if you watch on YouTube, it's a channel called Did You Know Movies? I think they recently did one on the production of the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, and what a fucking desperate shit show that was trying to get made. It's fascinating, and I've never been more enticed to go back. I haven't seen it since I was like a proper kid, and I remember loving it. But
who's the director? Was it Alan Parker?
Not a clue.
Is that his name? No, probably not. Must be.
He'll be the guy who made Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and probably not much else.
Probably. That's probably true. Steve Barron directed it.
Steve Barron?
Steve Barron. There you go. Sorry. Let me see. There's another thing that Steve Barron directed. There you go. He's the one who directed Billie Jean.
Oh, I didn't know that. I think it's in the video. That's awesome.
Yeah, Steve Barron. Sorry about that. So Stephen Barron, he directed the Ninja Turtles and Billie Jean.
Nice. Again, another production fraught with disaster.
There you go.
Nice.
Calling Steve Barron to put out fires.
Couldn't even get half the fucking set to light up. Poor bastard. He's a problem solver. That's what that guy is.
He's the wolf. You bring him in to solve problems.
There you go.
We're gonna have this turtle movie where 4 men are about to die of asphyxiation. They're gonna wear rubber suits and they can't fucking breathe. Can you make an hour-and-a-half movie out of this? You're fucking right, I can.
As long as the floor doesn't have to light up, we're all good.
Exactly. Yeah. Just get some standard pyrotechnics. I'll make shit happen.
All right, and the last thing I watched, as I said earlier, was The Founder, starring Michael Keaton. I don't remember who directed it. Do you remember, JD? You guys covered it on InSession.
It was John Lee Hancock.
Okay, I remember that name.
See, and here's the thing about John Lee Hancock, and this will definitely either enhance your expectations, like my wife, or decrease them. But he also did The Blind Side, which my wife, I'm not joking, watches at least once a week, which is, well, I love her. I'll just simply put it in that term. But he also did Saving Mr. Banks, which is a film that I really did like. So,
which one is that? Sorry,
Saving Mr. Banks is a movie that I really like
the Walt
that he
Disney
did.
movie. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, so
I've been meaning to watch that for ages.
Yeah, me too.
It looks really good. Unlike The Blind Side.
Yeah, that one not as much. So
didn't look like my thing.
But that's it. So I haven't seen The Blind Side. I haven't seen Saving Mr. Banks. So I watched The Founder. And is it anything special? No. Is it a good movie? Sure. I really think that they should have done a better job at probably making the McDonald's brothers look a little bit less gullible. Mm-hmm. I think that being on Ray Kroc's side was a bit weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you don't really want to know just how he swindled his way into getting a company and stealing it from people, because I think the weirdest thing is that, okay, is this supposed to be an inspirational story? Is it supposed to be, one of those...
He did it.
Yeah,
American Dream.
Is it like a cautionary tale? What's going on, you know?
It's really not that at all. It's this one guy who fucked over 2 brothers. That's what it is. It's not inspiring or heartwarming.
That does sound inspirational.
But it's so weird. It's so weird for them to be like, hey, check this out. And you're like, well, okay, I could have watched a documentary on it. It would have been all right. But I don't know. I liked it. But, I didn't like what he did. But I remember turning to my girlfriend and saying, it's a little weird, but I kind of understand. I feel like there's a little part of me inside that guy, or
I let that guy swindle me any day.
If you like characters that embody the idea of ambition and they do it through lying and cheating and manipulation, then it's certainly a story for you. But and to me, that's not really my problem. I mean, because we've seen lots of characters like that on film. It's really more of an execution thing. There are weird turns throughout the film. Like, for example, you see in the first 10 minutes of the movie that this guy isn't a very good salesman. The film goes out of its way to show you that he's not a very successful salesman. Then all of a sudden he meets these 2 brothers and he becomes the biggest and best franchisee that the United States has ever seen and never known. And that to me just didn't make any sense. I don't understand how I'm supposed to believe this guy who couldn't sell a simple machine to all of a sudden franchising this thing. So
100% agree.
So for me, it's things like that detract from the movie for me.
Oh, absolutely.
I like how you described him like the main character of Nightcrawler, but suddenly we all have an issue.
It's just odd because to me, I think it was fitting for it to be a movie about McDonald's, because this is where I categorize films like this as McDonald's movies. It's one of those things that you ingest fast and you shit out fast as well. So, I mean, if you're to watch The Founder, that's exactly what you're going to get. It's a fast film to digest. You're going to forget about it the next day. You won't regret it necessarily, but you definitely won't think about it.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
That seems... Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sold.
No, but I mean, like I said, to me, it's a perfectly serviceable film. It's paint by numbers, but like I said, paint by numbers done well looks good. It's just not good because you know it's not art. And so to me, this is a paint by numbers that I can get behind. It's a kind of movie that I know that my mom is going to enjoy. She's going to be like, oh, what an asshole. And I was like, that's exactly the point of the film, Ma. And she'll be fine with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
For people like you, me, and JD, it's we're like, all right, cool.
Don't class me with you. I don't want any affiliation with this.
All right, so that's it for me anyway. So I don't have anything else to add. Do you guys have anything else that you want to recommend to people?
Go watch Jonathan Demme films. I'll say that.
Yes, definitely. Go watch Something Wild, The Manchurian Candidate. Go see Silence of the Lambs. Rachel Getting Married.
Yeah.
Fantastic pictures. Go watch that.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So, shall we close this out, sir?
Let's do it.
Excellent. JD, man, this has been a fucking honor to actually be able to sit here and talk to you again, but on this side of the fence this time, because Rogue One was an event for me.
Yeah.
And now having you over here, this is awesome for me too.
This was fun.
Cool. So please just tell the listeners again where we can find you online, and I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, so as I said, we have the InSession Film Podcast. We do 2 shows a week. You can find us at InSessionFilm.com. You can find us on all of the podcast platforms out there, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, whatever it may be. You can find us on Twitter at InSessionFilm or on Facebook and Google Plus as well. And again, you can find everything simply at InSessionFilm.com.
Excellent. And please do that. InSession is one of the reasons we actually got into podcasting. I mean, I reached out to JD so many fucking times for the most banal things. Like I was explaining to Brendan on our The Master episode, I reached out to you because someone had fucked me over an idea, and you told me to calm the fuck down, which is it's the beginning of a wonderful romance with me and JD Duran.
You did, you didn't explicitly tell him, go onto WordPress and find a guy who writes reviews. Don't listen to any of his other stuff. Just take a wild gamble that he sounds okay at a recording. But I mean, he followed that advice as well. So I mean, who knows where the fucking spine goes?
But can I speak to that real fast? Because I have loved seeing how your guys' show has blossomed, and it's been fun to tune in every single week, and I'm still catching up with some of your guys' work, but I love what you guys do. It's been really fun to see everything come together over the last 6 months, and being in with some of those conversations with you, Jason, at the beginning, and getting to know you guys, and obviously having you on our show as well has just been an honor for me as well. It's been a pleasure, and I've loved seeing the success that you guys have had so far. Having the kind of success you guys did on Stitcher last week, and the responses you guys get every single week, it is so earned, and I love the pathos you guys bring to your show. It's so robust, and it's magnetic and mesmerizing and captivating, and
stop it's too many adjectives.
I'm gonna keep using all kinds of words that people make fun of me all the time.
That's great. That's incredible. Hi, my name's Lee Brady. I work with a guy called Jason. We've got a really robust show.
Yes, you do.
What a turn off.
That's so lovely, JD.
Yeah, that's great. I love your guys' show.
I'm paying you. Stop thinking we're paying
I know.
You
don't need to. You guys have done enough. So.
Yeah, but thank you so much for those kind words, man. I mean, like I said, the 2 people that I remember being like, oh my god, I have to talk to these guys. It was JD Duran and David Hart. These are 2 people that I knew first and foremost. I was like, I love these guys' shows. They know what they're talking about, and I have to talk to these people. So now we've got JD on the show. Now we're gonna go get fucking David's ass.
Yeah,
as well.
Dave's great.
I'd bring JD back for something more, less casual next time.
Yeah, exactly. I'm excited for that too.
More robust.
And like I said, I've always been a big fan of InSession Film. I gotta get myself a T-shirt eventually. I'm gonna send you guys some money so I can get myself a nice
appreciate
T-shirt
it.
I can wear to the gym and sweat it.
There you go.
But that's it. So yeah, anybody who's not listening to InSession, it's a fucking sin. Go over there, download all their episodes, send them some love. They deserve it. And I'll leave Brendan
it, guys.
to Tim, but I'm keeping JD.
Yeah. There you go.
Cool. And Lee, where can we find you, sir?
Yeah, so you can find me at Big Pick Reviews on Twitter. Yeah, so if you want to hit me up with some casual conversation, absolutely, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. You're autonomous, I assume, so come at me. You can also see my reviews and some more of my robust work. You can find me at www.bigpicturereviews.co.uk. Me and a gang of unprofessionals keep you entertained and keep you educated, maybe, I guess.
Indeed.
Thanks for listening.
Lee needs to go to bed. It's midnight his time.
It's midnight where I am, so it's a miracle. I still give a shit.
Excellent. So you guys were listening to AtlanticSC Next. My name is Jason Michael. I want to thank you guys very much for listening. You can find me on Twitter at AtlanticSC. Tweet me. I always answer unless you're Yuche. Sometimes I don't. Stay tuned because next week we're going to be talking about Alien Covenant, and we're going to be bringing back the ever so popular Carrie Lynn to talk Alien with us because she loves that shit more than we do, and it's going to be a fascinating conversation.
It was an on-air confirmation when we did it on Under the Skin. We said, "Oh, an alien's coming up," and she went, "Yes, I'll be there." I was like, "Well, there's that sorted." So it's great. Super excited.
Excellent. All right, so thank you very much, you guys, for tuning in. Thanks again to JD for
as always
showing up as always and tweeting our stuff and all that. Thanks again, and Lee, go to bed.
Thank you.
Take care. Good night.
Bye.
This conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.